While Canada grapples with the uncertainty surrounding U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threats, Trump said today that there's a simple way to make a trade war go away.
Canada should honestly become our 51st state. We wouldn't have a northern border problem. We wouldn't have a tariff problem. By the way, when you take away that artificial line that looks like it was done with a ruler, yeah. And that's what it was. Some guy sat there years ago and they said, rah. Well, when you take away that and you look at that beautiful formation of Canada and the United States, there is no place anywhere in the world that looks like that. It's
plus Greenland, of course. Plus Greenland.
And then if you add Greenland, that's even. That's pretty good.
Gonna look beautiful.
It is hard to believe a United States president just fawning over taking over Canada. And he's not saying he's going to go in there militarily, but this is the United States of America. And we are a big enough economic power to bring Canada to his knees. Canada could economically be in a real bad place. First off, they're connected to us by land. They're a part of North America like we are. And there's absolutely no way they're ever going to join BRICS. And other than that, it's NATO. Unless NATO is going to prop them up and do whatever they got to do to let them remain as a country, the United States could choke them out financially. And then Canada would be begging to become a part of the United States as in the 51st state. But I can't believe that a president is actually coming up with this shit and thinking about figuring a way out to make Canada become, of course, Canada has a lot of resources and all, but it's still very, very small compared to what we have. But look how many American businesses have fled to Canada to get the tax benefits. And now, nothing is going to happen. But if Trump was to take over Canada as a 51st state, they'd be all for nothing. But they'd have to negotiate their health care. They have single payer, they have free health care. Everyone up there is free health care. That'd be hard to relinquish and join the United States. But Trump is thinking differently than any president, and the Democrats are painting him as the biggest villain ever. But I remember the same feeling when Dick Cheney and George Bush were being discussed. The same type of feeling. We invaded Iraq. We have to accept that. It happens in modern times. On purpose, by accident, by miscalculation, or by bad politics. It happens. It's really hard to believe that he's jokingly saying that, but with the power and the reach of the United States, any country who would hear this wouldn't be laughing unless you wanted to join the U.S. But if you wanted to remain on your own, it's not funny to hear the president of the United States joking about absorbing your country or annexing your country. That wouldn't make you feel good. And the Democrats are not doing us any favors, because either you agree with it or you don't agree with it. I get it. But my second choice, if I don't support Trump's move, is to be opposed to it, but still to understand that the United States comes first. We can't lose our patriotism and start chanting and fighting and crying for Canada when they do receive a lot of benefits by being connected to us by land, by having this huge marketplace to sell their goods and their products and make their country as rich as it is to be such of a small country up there selling with your exports. Life is good for them. Life ain't good for us. And if you get somebody in office who sees the imbalance and just wants to level it out a little, well, they've been living without having a very significant military, because look who they share the border with. Us. Nobody's going to invade Canada. An invasion of Canada would be like invading the United States. It ain't going to happen. And I understand that Trump wants to up the ante, get the United States paid. Our tax dollars are just going overseas just to pad other people's economy. We give money, and the word on the street now is, well, the United States doesn't give that much to Canada. Give Yeah, we buy their goods. That's given them. You might think, oh, well, they're earning their location in the world is ideal for them. And it's cool for us if they have goods and services that we can use, but it isn't going to make or break us. It can make or break them. And I don't want to root for what Trump is implying, but I don't want to be so against what he's saying that I'm going to put Canada in front of the United States. If I had my choice, I'd stay in the United States. This is where our fight is. This is where our life has been. This is where our history began, and this is where I'm going to be. There's nothing that would help me by leaving the United States of America. I can only benefit by being here because we need to do our thing a little different, and we can get where we need to be with what Trump and all these other Democrats and Republicans do, bouncing us around like ping pong balls and being the good guy while you're stabbing us in the back, or being the bad guy just because there's a lot of racism going on over there on the Republican side. But there's as much going on the Democratic side. People don't like to admit that, but we have the same issues with the Democrats when we have supermajorities. They don't put the black people on the list. It's not like, they're going to just say, boom, give them reparations. But could you pick 2 or 3, go down the list a little and give us something? Can we pledge that black business ownership will increase by 25%? That's not a huge number. And it won't be a huge amount of businesses in the grand scheme of things, but why don't any Democratic president ever pledge something like that, other than Obama trying to discourage us by saying the United States isn't ready for reparations? Okay, they probably never will be. But while we're working on reparations, can we move up in some other kind of small increment? Can you give us some something in a way of forming our own businesses, so that when the devil is voted into the White House, like the Democrats say right now, and that's who we have in Trump. If Trump is the devil and he's in the White House right now, why weren't we put in a place after 60 years of supporting the Democratic Party that has enjoyed supermajorities and never made us their priority, never took us off the table, where we couldn't be affected as easily, especially with the racial divide and the racism that exists in this country? We should have been put in a place of security and safety, and not put in a place where we're at risk of the political winds and only 53 days into a new president and everybody is just screaming like this is going to be it. That means the Democrats haven't done anything for us to be that vulnerable. And Trump is really feeling himself right now. He's going around and letting everybody knows that there is a change in the United States. He is not going to allow, in his mind, us to go bankrupt and lose our country as a whole. We have over 750 military installations worldwide. 750. China has the bases they have in China. Russia has the bases they have over there in their part of the world. We are the ones who have military bases all over the planet. It would be very unwise for anybody to go to war with the United States. It could get real bad. But if we aren't able to sustain our military installations and our military budget, because we continue to prop up our allies and give our allies free health care and food and whatever else it is they need, weapons, if they decide they are in a precarious place and they need our support militarily, which means financially, we can spread ourselves so thin that we can lose our country. $37 trillion in debt means that's $37 trillion that we didn't have, that we had to open a line of credit for as opposed to paying for it outright. As huge as our tax base is, there are still limitations. And then inside that, there is a significant amount of fraud and nepotism and unfairness as far as that type of money being distributed through the government, and the government being as huge as it is. It's almost like a welfare system where people get to drive Mercedes. It ain't right. And black people continue to believe that DEI and all these programs are being taken away are directly aimed at them, and they're not. We're feeling that way because the Democratic Party is making us feel like victims, and that Trump's moves are directly aimed at us, and they're not directly aimed at us. We will be affected by some of them, but only because after being released from slavery in 1865, the Democrats and the Republicans haven't done anything for us. We switch back and forth, and here we are in the mid-60s switching to Democrat, and in 60 years, they've done nothing for us. Statistically, we're at the bottom of everything. There's no reason for us to continue to support that party. There's no reason for our congressman right now in a losing situation to start closing doors and having it out with those Democrats on our behalf, and letting the Republicans know or not know, or if they get informed, who gives a damn? We need to fix our shit. We need to fix our house so that we can take all these independents and bring them back over to the Democratic Party. But the Democratic Party needs to basically commit to us. In some way, they have to commit. They have to say, you know what? You guys are an important part of our party, and we use you guys in so many various different ways that don't even equal money. It's a part of our party. We can't get your story from the Hispanics. They do have a story, and it's a very compelling one, but it ain't your story. Your story trumps them all as far as what we got going on in this country. And we were a product of their slave trade under this government. That's the bad part. It is harmful sometimes, and I don't think white people really get it. But when you're black and you hear people revere that Constitution and how they'll, it's just such of a wonderful thing for them to have. It's a foundation to this country, and to black people, it's not the same. It's not the same feeling. It wasn't written with the same intent. It was written when we were still captive. It had to be amended, but an amendment in a law, an amendment in an act, or even an article of the Constitution, it still doesn't make the people in that town or in that society act properly. It doesn't. They still treat black people, Hispanic people, gay people, whoever it is they don't like, the way they treat them, and there's nothing you can do about it. And by changing laws, our government needs to practice what it preaches. And I think if we see our Democratic senators that we support in the high 85 to 90% range support black people back in that same, and we will make progress. When we have an opportunity to move forward, our Democratic senators vote against us. We got a lot of Democratic senators who go across the aisle all the time and vote with the Republicans because they really do believe in them closer than they believe in us. And they are showing their support that way and none our way. And we continue to be a part of this party that we don't have to be a part of. We can benefit more from the Democratic Party from not being a part of it, by being the black party or whatever the hell we want to call ourselves, until somebody comes to us with a bouquet of flowers that's big enough for us to decide, yeah, now this is what we want. This is going to help us. This is what black people being homeless in the United States of America has to be illegal. There's no way black people should be on the street. I don't give a damn. No way. There has to be a place for them to go. It breaks my heart to see the mental issues going on in these folks, and they're just wandering around the streets, and it's being allowed. And veterans out there just wandering the street, and the homeless population in general, but especially to see a homeless black person, and if you could just follow that person's family from the time they stepped on these shores, the land they've worked, the crops they picked, the things they built, the homes they've owned, the places they've lived, and it all culminates down to someone walking the street being homeless, and they come from that lineage and that history and a family, a real family. And they have to live in the richest country in the world, homeless.
Okay, there's a new bill in Congress that is hoping to stop Trump from forcibly annexing the countries he has his sights on. Congressman Seth Magaziner put forward the No Invading Allies Act, which aims to ban funding for the armed forces to engage in operations to invade or seize territory from Canada, the Republic of Panama, or the self-governing territory of Greenland without congressional approval.
I don't even think you have to do that, except that in recent times, they've been sliding off and allowing presidents to do more than a president should be doing. Why should we ever do shortcuts? Why should we ever cut procedures out when it's a laid out way of doing things? If we stick to it and don't begin to deviate, then the next president coming in will understand that this is a country that stays close in order to maintain our democracy. Because when you start working outside of how the democracy was built to work, then you deviate and you get this kind of stuff from a gentleman like President Trump. And you get the kind of stuff like Biden. No president in his right mind should ever open a border up intentionally. Just pretty much inform agents to rely. That should be traceable and like charges filed or some type of responsibility or punishment to someone. If a border patrol boss told his guys to stand down, he needs to be charged unless he can give up like they do criminals out in the streets. Who told you to do that? Who gave you that order? And then when he gives that order, then that person's on the hot seat unless they can keep moving up until we find out it came from Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or whoever the hell it came from. So we have a clear understanding that a border door doesn't just accidentally get left open. The wind don't blow and the door just swing open and you just got people running through it real quick. That's not how it works. And I'm just very disgusted that him worrying about Canada being invaded is a topic of discussion. What kind of government are we running here where a president could come in and have something like that done? Is this really a democracy? Is that what the United States people want? Do we need Canada? Is our country really in more peril economically than they're letting us on to? All I know is $37 trillion is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. We're up to $1 trillion in just interest annually, I believe. That's in just interest. So we're paying $1 trillion a year just on interest on 37. It's pretty hard to believe that our country has slipped into that, and not over its existence, not debt going back 40 or 50 years. Bill Clinton actually balanced the budget, and he laid off a bunch of government employees to do it. He reorganized. You guys remember if you're around in the 90s, welfare changed. Bill Clinton did that, and that was part of his effort to balance the budget. He was cracking down. You wasn't getting welfare as we knew it, wasn't the same no more. If you wanted welfare, he had different stipulations and shit that you had to do to get it. And it wasn't as available as it was prior. It seems like in recent years, it's kind of opened back up again. I don't know if it's the Democratic presidents or what's happened, but I don't think that having real good welfare programs and safety nets it makes a strong country. I think having a country that doesn't require those kind of safety nets so that a person can make their own safety net. When times get rough, we can draw upon ourselves, but we were given the opportunity when times were good to build a safety net and to build a place for us to fall and land and survive. But shit, the way it's going with Trump, he may really annex it. He's speaking on it. He could speak that shit into existence, especially if they want to be feisty and start trying to go tit for tat with the damn tariffs. Can you believe it? That ain't going to go good for them. They might shut down some of the electricity on the East Coast. We'll get that handled. And if it does get to the point where Americans start dying, then maybe he can do something other than invading them, but maybe militarily make them turn that shit back on. The United States has a deficit of $37 trillion. If all we got to do is pay to get the lights turned back on, then we'll pay. But our dollars are longer than Canada's dollars, and Canada needs the United States more than they need us. And militarily, they can be at risk for being bothered by other countries. But the biggest thing they have to be worried about is being over there by themselves, because anybody who deal with them, we can sanction them or punish them for even messing with Canada. And we've done that before. So don't think that the United States won't do it, because they will, and they have, and they can. And that's the part that we all need to stay pinned in on, because there's no really getting mad at the guy because he's talking big talk about. He's said he's going to balance the budget in 4 years. If he can balance that shit and get that rid of a $37 trillion that he contributed to. Obama, Trump, Bush, and Biden. That's 4 presidents. 37 trillion. That don't make no goddamn sense. In 4 presidents to rack up that kind of debt. That means they're irresponsible fiscally. That means they don't care if it ever gets paid. When you put a particular amount of money on a credit card with no intention on paying it or no plan on how you're going to pay it, then you're a terrible president. And I would say all 4 of those are terrible. I don't see how the country looks at these people as good presidents when you're sending billions and billions of dollars all over the world and piling up on your debt into the trillions just to maintain world dominance, just to maintain your military installations and your foothold on the world so that you are the strongest nation. But if you get to the point where you can't make those payments, and if you get to the point where you can't keep those military installations open, and you begin to lose your influence in the world like we are and like we have, this is a Hail Mary pass that Trump's trying to do. He's trying to do something that looks unlikely that it can be done. And the Democrats are screaming and hollering, even if it did look likely. They don't want this to succeed. If what Trump is doing, as drastic as it is, has any level of success, the Democrats are done. They cannot and should not, if they plan on surviving as a political party, support him in any way. Because if they do, it's going to be curtains for them. And that's where the Black Caucus and Black people need to redefine their self within the Democratic Party or outside the Democratic Party. Because we can be as effective in or out, but we cannot continue to go along like they're doing us, sitting in these posts that they put us in and not really doing very much of anything for our own people, but working hard for everyone else.
Democratic Representative for Rhode Island, Seth Magaziner, joins me now. Congressman, it's good to meet you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for the invitation.
I have to ask you about your bill. I have to start there, and it feels almost surreal to ask you about the No Invading Allies Act, a piece of legislation to protect Greenland, Panama, and Canada from the United States. Why did you feel the need to do this?
Well, because President Trump has erratically and irresponsibly been talking about seizing territory from allied nations to the United States. Even in his inaugural speech, I was sitting there in the Capitol Rotunda listening to Donald Trump give his speech right after he was inaugurated back in January. And it was a short moment, but there was a line in his speech where he said that the United States would expand our territory. That has not been the goal of a United States president in over a century, and it was shocking to hear.
It is, but when you get a new president, you get new goals. One president can make a harder left turn than the one before him did, or a harder right, or a U-turn, or go in circles. They do all kind of shit. You can't expect him to stay on course with things he don't agree with, just because it's what the United States has been doing. For the most part, I think they all agree on this being the United States and the way it has been run generally. But some of the little things that they want to tweak when you're dealing with a country this size, it can be quite devastating to the people at the bottom, because everybody else is going to be able to withstand this and sustain themselves throughout this storm. It's the most vulnerable, which is what the Democrats haven't done for us. Put us in a place where we can weather a storm. If the government collapses, black people collapse because they've attached us to it through being Democrats and through being dependent on it, through all these programs that don't benefit us the most. For all these ways of trying to get money to us, and everybody else steps in front of us and gets more of it than was intended in our eyes. But it really was intended for them to prosper. Can you imagine how white people benefit in this country, and then they make programs that they can qualify for by being LGBTQ plus or by being women? That's terrible. If you're white, you shouldn't get any special privileges, because that's when wealth gaps start closing and we can catch up. Maybe if the white man don't own half the town and then his wife's out managing a huge department inside the government because she's the DEI hire. I just think it's terrible. And I think it's the worst thing is that black people support it. We have to back away from the Democratic Party on these terms. They have negotiated a bad deal for us. The way we interact with them and the shit that they have lined up for us to do doesn't do anything for us. The next time the Democrats, Jasmine Crockett, come out and have anything to say about black people, it should be something that we can do that's going to help us, and not what they're doing now. They're just frustrated and mad and bitching and complaining and back in Canada harder than they're back in the United States. Donald Trump is our president. If we invade Canada, we invade Canada. What are you going to do about it? But we invaded Iraq. I didn't see people out in the streets. Everybody got to understand that if we need Canada to survive, and we ain't going to go over there and blow up their towns and kill people, economically, Donald Trump can bring them to their knees, and we can absorb, annex, or however you wanted to marry Canada. They'd be ours.
So listen, do I think that Donald Trump intends to invade Canada by force? I think probably not, but we can't take anything for granted. It's insane that we even have to have this conversation, but I introduced the bill just to send the message that the American people don't want this. The polling has shown that it is tremendously unpopular for the president to be talking about invading or seizing territory from Canada, Greenland.
I agree with him, but this country ain't run on polls. It's run on elections. So if a president gets in office after he just won an election, start listening to polls, he's a fool. If Donald Trump told everybody out loud on a microphone what he was going to do when he got in office, and he get in there and he start doing it, we can be frustrated. We can be mad. Some people can say this is Project 2025. It can be whatever you guys want to call it. But it doesn't feel much different to me than what I've experienced my whole life. And that's a bunch of being upset and being unsettled because someone else is being affected and we're being pulled into it so that we can feel the pain that doesn't sometimes even make the pain we already have any worse. It's just some pain that has gotten so bad other people are feeling it. And then they start digging on black people to come on, we need you guys. Dig up some blacks, bring them in, and we get out there on the front lines and we will dance, we will rap, we will sing, we'll break dance, we'll do all kind of shit. And that's to put what harms them or what hurts them or what causes them discomfort at the forefront. And what really bothers us and what we really need is something that we have to go to sleep with each night, cry ourselves to sleep, because we can't speak on it. Because if we do, that's all we talk about is, oh, that shit. That's all they talk about. So we can't. We have to honor what they're going through. And Canada is a country that would be considered white predominantly. And they like the way they living up there. And if they become a 51st state, it could be like Texas, where everybody migrated, down to Texas. Well, shit, Canada, away from the southern border. There's a lot of folks who like to live up there of all nationalities who are United States citizens and without a passport. And all you need is a U-Haul truck and you could be not a citizen of Canada, but move to Canada, the state. And that's something. They don't want to hear that shit because they've been benefiting the way they are a small country living next to the United States. They can sell everything they got in this country, everything, and be very rich and well off and have free health care as a result of it. The country down here being bled to death, we don't have free health care. We got people dying and our food. I'll bet you so much stuff will change in Canada, and they're afraid that the food that we eat and the things they allow on the shelves in the stores. Canada's like, oh, hell no. Fuck that. The United States, they know that we are a very unhealthy population. They know. They don't want no parts of that. But God, Americans rolling in and dead, man, we would change Canada for sure. And at least it'll be like Drake will really be from the United States then. He won't be a Canadian. It'll be like a United States. And maybe that'll help him. He can get back on his little reputation he got going because Kendrick Lamar is doing a number on him. Jesus. But back to Canada possibly being annexed by the United States. Yeah, I could see it. And I don't think that Trump is playing. If they could devise a plan, and they might, people thinking raising tariffs and we gonna lose. No, there's no one who can win a trade war against us, including China. If everybody in the United States understands that we must adjust our belts, we can't tighten it up. We can't continue to live and feel the way we feel right now and win a trade war. Tariffs will go up, prices will go up. But when you shut down those products because the tariff was 25% and they just increased the price 26% or 24% or 25%, then we tell them that product ain't coming into the United States because you was selling it to us before we raised this tariff for this price and we want to continue to get it for that. But oh no, your tariff, well then keep it. Tighten up the belt. There's nothing that we can't make or get in our own country or do without. Anything that's that important is a luxury and we can do without if we're all truly Americans and we want to dig deep and survive through this, whatever Trump got planned. But if he's planning on cutting our $37 trillion deficit in 4 years, oh, we're going to tighten some belts and we're going into a recession. There's no way we can't. Clinton had a recession. You're going to have a recession because you are tightening the belt. You are making the government smaller. And as a result of that, you're going to balance the budget, you say. I don't think he can do it. I really don't. And for $37 trillion is a lot of money to try to balance. If he does this, I would be amazed. That's all I can say. I can't see it. And with the country fighting against it, nobody wants a recession. Everybody wants the benefits of balancing a budget. Everybody wants, but when we had a clean slate, people just started wars and putting the money for that war on a credit card so that we pay it later. And look, it's still there. We cannot be that bad economically, fiscally unresponsible country to where now we got a president sizing up our ally to the north. That's messed up. But hey, that's how the world works, you know. And don't act like it doesn't. Putin is not just on a whim when it invaded Ukraine. He's been Georgia over there. It used to be the Soviet Union. And when some of those countries get too friendly with the West or with the NATO organizations and Europe because they're right there with them, that makes Putin uncomfortable. And he will invade your shit to make his comfort level right. And if right now we're going through some kind of economic issue and we might have to hit Canada up for whatever resources they got, and Trump is trying to push Canada to just like be like, yeah, we wouldn't mind, like, hey, that's a great idea, and he get to be like the man with the plan. But it's not going to go that easy because they are benefiting so well being who they are, how they are, and where they are, that they would be fools to just relinquish that and join. But they might be pressured into it. That I can see.
Land or Panama. It's not what the American people want. But unfortunately, we have a leader in Donald Trump who is unhinged and and needs to be reined in. Under the United States Constitution, actually Article 1 of our Constitution, it is Congress and not the president who has the authority to declare war.
And that's the part, and when one president's in office, it's a problem if he declare war. But then when somebody else is in office who you like, then it's fine that he do it because he was being pragmatic and he understood what he was. It's like, come on, man, let's just be real. I don't think a president should be able to declare war. I believe it should go through Congress, and I believe that's the way it's supposed to be done. But they started skirting away from that and, doing small military actions. And, with the kind of military might we have, believe me, we can get things happening real quick. We don't have to do a whole war if we don't want to. Our wars are as violent as we choose them to be. And with that being said, we have got to come out of this thinking. And we gotta, as a people, we have to quit thinking that the world is the way the United States have made us believe it is. It's a brutal place out there. The other countries see things we don't see. Their citizens shake and cry and go to sleep at night unsettled. People in the United States have no idea the security and the blanket and the warmth and the comfort that this country provides for us because of their military might. But now we have a huge economic issue that's causing us to threaten our neighbors and change the way we do business, according to Donald Trump, in order to make it through and continue to have a country. It's Donald Trump's opinion. That's how he feels it's going to go. If we don't believe it and the Democrats continue to fight and obstruct and do whatever, because that's all they can do. And if you're going to be an obstructionist, you better be a good one. You better have a real good argument. You better have a real good game plan, and you better be able to get people out in the streets. And that's the only way it'll make sense because if people don't go out in the streets, politicians, you look like you're just lying to us. And black people, we can't fall for it because we do the streets good. We can get out there and protest some shit, but we can't do it right now because it would be a horrible look, because it would make Trump's presidency look like it's being boycotted and picketed and fought, and then he might lose his approval ratings. He might lose a lot of shit, and the Republicans might lose the next election and even these midterms. But what will black people get for this? What will we get for our participation? Will we get what we've always gotten, or are the Democrats ready to up the ante? Are the Democrats ready to start doing things for us so that we don't keep running into these moments where we have to cry and scream and whine and do what you guys tell us in order to be accepted, or in order to be at the bottom, I guess, not accepted, to be stepped on? The time got to change. We have to talk to our own folks different before we can expect anything different out of Donald Trump. So Democrats who are in power, who represent us, turn around and face the Democrats, the ones who don't like us. You guys know who they are. They're your colleagues. You go to work with them every day, and when you speak in that chamber, some of the Democrats are as pissed off seeing you over there as the Republicans are. And that's what is harming black people, because we act like all the Democrats like us, but we haven't moved our agenda anywhere. We don't really even have an agenda. A wish list, anything. They're not doing anything for black people, and they don't plan on it. And Donald Trump, maybe if he got Canada shit, he moving things around like that, maybe all us can move up there. Damn well they'll move out of Canada. Maybe we have our own little state up there. I don't know. We need to it's cold though. I'm sorry. Bad move. We got to come back down south. Yeah, we black people, we don't like that cold weather like that. But they doing it in Chicago and New York. Shit, maybe we can handle it. But with Trump doing his thing like he is, and the Democrats filing dumbass shit like it's just obstructionists and they're just trying to get people's attention. Hey, look, he's a bad president. I don't think it's working. I really don't. And if Donald Trump was such a bad president And if he wanted to really tear the United States apart like they claim, because they are saying that he's in an effort to really ruin the country, like to bring it to nothingness, to just, I don't know how he would benefit or how all the billionaires and millionaires in this country would benefit if he did that. But let's say he did want, that was his goal, to get in office and tear the government apart, make it as chaotic as he could. If that was his true goal, we are pending a shutdown, a government shutdown. It would be very easy for him right now to shut the entire, I know he's shutting down agencies. He's shuttering agencies as we speak. But if he really wanted that government shut down, why wouldn't he just not meet that debt ceiling, not tell his guys you can do whatever you want, just make it chaotic? He's fighting, and his folks are fighting to keep the government open. Because he could very easily push to keep it closed or get it closed, I'm sorry, and it would close. But I think he really believes he's doing the right thing. Whether he is or not, that's another story. But I don't believe he's intentionally trying to sabotage the country, because if you're the president of the United States and you're kicking executive orders out the way he is, you could be doing a lot more damage than what the Democrats say you're doing. We got a lot of people in this country who have a whole lot of money invested in this, and more of them, or a lot of them, support Trump, because there's a lot of billionaires and millionaires in this country who support the Democrats as well. But until I hear and we're going to have some financial discomfort, but until I hear the really, really rich begin to whine and cry, and they're even now the Democrats are saying, Elon Musk lost 140 billion or something. When you got the kind of money, and it through his company or whatever he may have, but when you got the kind of money he got, you won't see him eating top ramen. You're going to see him get that 140 back in tenfold or something over time. It goes that way in business, and especially the more you got, the more you're going to lose. 140. How many businesses in the United States could afford to lose 140 billion and still be called a business? So that lets you know how big his thing is. He has a stronghold on the United States government because of the services that he provides with his space company, SpaceX. And people can say, oh, we don't, NASA pretty much is SpaceX. So I don't know. He's almost damn a government agency on his own, whether you want to be or not. But annexing Canada, man, that would be crazy. But in world history, crazier shit has happened. Trust me. So if we did annex Canada, hey, I'd have to learn how to speak Canadian, or what is that, French? Oh man, that'd be crazy.
And through the years, Congress has given presidents a lot of leeway to engage in hostilities for a temporary period of time without specific authorization from Congress. So my bill basically says that Congress needs to reclaim its constitutional authority.
How do you make a bill to make the congressman do what another bill tell them they should be doing? Like, it's like follow the fucking bills that are on the books. And then they mean something. But once you know how it is over here, that you set a precedent, and then everything goes left. So you have to, especially as lawmakers, so that when you're in the minority and in a lesser place, you can still not worry that the whole world's going to be taken over because you set all these horrible precedents when you were in power. Then your opponent gets in power and you're like, oh God, you got nothing to stand on.
We cannot trust Donald Trump with so long a leash.
You know, it's not likely to be a war, a hot war, a ground war. It can have a military invasion. But the president has spoken quite openly about his desire to use economic coercion, essentially for the annexation of Canada, to absorb our resources, to absorb our land, to absorb our economy. I mean, what goes through your mind when you hear the President of the United States talking about that? And we're now engaged in this race to the bottom trade war that is killing the stock market and jobs on both sides of the border now.
Yeah, it's tremendously destructive and foolish. Again, it has not been a policy of the United States or of any president to seize territory from our allies.
No, it hasn't been. But, I wouldn't call it season either. I really believe that the United States could realistically engage in negotiations with Canada and absorb them. And they could be totally economic and militarily, because we are their military protection. They make no mistake about it. And just because they're fortunate to be in that position that they are geographically, that don't mean that they should be living free off us. I mean, I don't want to sound messed up or nothing, but they need to, pay their way, because they are benefiting being at that board. Oh my God, in so many ways. So either, we should up the ante and put a little more financial pressure on them, because even as members of NATO, they lag in their payments, and they got things going on in their country, and they can't afford to always make their payments to NATO in the percentage that was agreed upon. And, they keep pushing the date back and adjusting things. But it's time that Canada had to start looking at it like, hey, you know what? We not your big brother. We're your friend. And at some point, we ain't going to continue to protect you for free. And if Trump can sit down and negotiate with them and absorb them, fine. Otherwise, we can leave that alone. It ain't the top of the conversation for where I'm sitting. The top of the conversation from where I'm sitting is that the world is feeling a little bit of discomfort because it's unsettling for things to happen sporadically the way Trump is doing it. It's just a fact. But that's why you don't hear the billionaires screaming. You don't hear the millionaires screaming. You don't hear the people who have their own businesses that really provide a service and are self-sufficient screaming. You hear the people who rely somehow directly or indirectly on the government screaming the most. And that's the politicians and the government recipients of all kind of programs and benefits. Those are the people screaming the most. And hopefully we can find a way to pay attention to those folks that are screaming and enhance their lives, so we won't hear them screaming when we go through this kind of stuff again. They should be in a position financially to not be squealing, so they can watch the news and have a cup of coffee and relax and understand that we're not moving in this direction. Things ain't going up the way we would like them to be. But know that your life ain't going to be over, and you're not going to be scrambling for your next meal. And that's the part that the Democrats seem to keep us in that position where we are so reliant that this guy can come in and just start flipping switches. And I just don't like that part. It's very unsettling.
For well over a century. And this is not what the American people voted for. It was not a campaign issue that arose. Seizing territory and seizing resources was not something that the president campaigned on. And it's not what people voted for. As far as this trade war goes, ultimately it's consumers who are paying for it. It's consumers in the United States and in Canada who are paying higher prices, who are being squeezed.
Well, the Americans don't have to. If they start increasing those tariffs, our people need to quit accepting those shipments. When you see the price go up, shut down make them send that shit back. Or drop the price. I'm sure they'll get on the phone with the right person and be like, oh, are we got to bring it back? Okay. I mean, I don't think that these tariffs just arbitrarily go. We set prices in our country. And if they set the price, then we accept it or don't accept it. So basically, we set the prices in our country. We're not going to allow that if we got people in the right places doing the right shit. Trump cannot go in flipping this government around and not replacing some of these folks and the things that they did. And it might not be the kind of manpower we're used to seeing. It might not even be adequate. But I believe right now it's necessary. It's necessary for us to see that we can't just be lulled to sleep by a government, whether they be Republican or Democrat, and think we're going to come out of this okay. We have to advocate for ourselves, or we're going to be abruptly awakened over the course of our lives just to pay attention and get upset and then get lulled back to sleep. Nah, that's not the way it's supposed to be. We are woke, and we do need our opportunity to do what we got to do so that we don't have to rely on the Democrats for protection. They're not very good at protecting themselves, let alone us.
Because of Donald Trump's recklessness, and it's not good for the average working person on either side of the border.
So on Monday, the Premier of Ontario announced a 25% surcharge on the electricity exports from Canada's largest province to Michigan, Minnesota, and New York. Donald Trump responded this morning saying the steel and aluminum tariffs coming into effect on Wednesday will go to 50% in retaliation to that. Now, late today, the Premier of Ontario is saying he's going to suspend the electricity surcharge, and him and maybe the finance minister of Canada are on their way to Washington to meet with Howard Lutnick to try to get some movement on this. This volatility, this on, off, I mean, just what is it doing to the economy and to the stock market? I mean, how long can America endure that without going into a recession, do you think?
Yeah, well, listen, as a member of the United States Congress, I'm never going to advocate for any nation to retaliate against the United States, regardless of the context. But that being said, Donald Trump never should have gotten us into this trade war to begin with, because ultimately it's only consumers who pay the price.
He keeps saying that. You know what? If we're going to have a trade war with Canada to get them to do whatever it is our president feels they should be or need to be doing, and that shit work, then it's going to work. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't. But he had to say them words because he is pulling for Canada. And like a lot of people in America are. And I just don't see it. I mean, I ain't pulling for Trump to go invade their country or nothing, but I'm not pulling for Canada. I don't think that Canada has the United States' best interest at heart. And I don't think anybody in America should have the United States rather should have Canada's best interest at heart. Our best interest should be at heart.
When you talk to businesses, it makes it very difficult for them to plan their capital investments. They are very nervous about the impact on consumer spending.
See, that's the thing. The people who own businesses are nervous now. The people who have a lot of money are feeling it. They feeling it, but they ain't hollering yet. But they feeling it. They paying attention. They are really paying attention. But if you're at the bottom, you're going to feel it because the services that the Democrats have propped us up with are going to be affected to some degree, possibly some of them gone completely. But is it the proper way to get that dealt with is to cry and whine and get those programs restored, or to move past those programs and become self-reliant and self-sufficient so that you don't have to worry about what the government does with its programs? I mean, that would be a better feeling for me anyway. Shit, I wouldn't want to be walking around hoping the United States government do the right thing, or you can be in a lot of trouble.
And again, for what? Like, what is the goal here? The president has not articulated a clear goal of what he intends to accomplish from this trade war. And so, my view is that he's using this to raise revenue off of the backs of consumers, off of the backs of working people, to help pay for his tax cut package, which will mostly benefit the very wealthy. It's a cynical and irresponsible way to do it. And, the stock market is one thing, but, I've got constituents at home in Rhode Island whose electricity bills are going up. The cost of construction is going up. We desperately need more housing in my part of the country. It's going to be harder for us to build more housing as a result of these tariffs. And it's bad economics. It's bad foreign policy. And so, again, not what people voted for.
We spoke with your colleague, Seth Moulton, last week on the show. And recently we spoke with your colleague, Congressman Bacon from Nebraska. It's not hard to find Democrats who are critical of the president. It's difficult to find people to join Congressman Bacon as a Republican who is willing to be publicly critical of the president. Do you think there is a moment where Republicans may speak out en masse to try to stop this if they feel enough economic pain as a consequence of either the direct actions of the president or the retaliatory actions by Canada?
Well, I think a lot of them are expressing concerns privately. But frankly, a lot of my Republican colleagues here in Congress are not living in reality.
They're not living in reality. I would think that the Republicans at this point in time are living more in reality than the Democrats, because they are in control, they're in power, and they have the ability to make things go in particular directions. So to say they're not living in reality is like the kind of shit that we need to get away from, as far as following a party that thinks like that. How can the Republicans not be living in reality when they are driving the bus right now? And that is the kind of statements and idealism that makes us go astray. Following that shit, we don't need it. We can come up with a better plan on our own than what he's over here talking about, trying to convince us that they got everything under control, but they don't.
They think that Donald Trump's actions are popular. They think that it won't be that bad. They, when angry people turn up at their town halls, they convince themselves that they were all somehow paid or coerced to be there, and then they just stop having town halls so that they don't have to hear from their constituents anymore. They're going to have their bubble burst in one way or another.
I think we all are. I mean, for us to feel that we're in a good place and our trajectory in this country is going downward, not up. We're not growing and burgeoning. We're on our way down. And with that as a fact, then we need to be doing things differently. We can't continue to keep pouring billions of dollars out in aid when we need that money back home, if for no other reason but to pay off our debt. I understand that we help people eat and help people feel safe and provide security for other countries all around the world. But we're not in a position to do that. We just ain't. And if we're doing it, it's foolish. If your bank account is broke and you're out loaning money to other people that you don't even have to loan because you have bills of your own that need to be paid, that's foolish. And for this man to get in there and try something different, which may not be the brightest and best method, but what he's saying he's trying to do and what he's doing in there physically as far as trying to tighten the belt is just very different than what we're all used to seeing. And I don't want to get caught up in what the Democrats are telling me is going to fail or not work or not make it. And they're out there doing nothing to monitor or police this on our behalf. There's absolutely no way that the Democrats can't at least be watching this closely as our elected officials, instead of filing bills and acts so that we can't invade Canada. I mean, if President Trump can get the military out and go and invade Canada, that right there in itself, I'm telling you, it would just mean that this country hasn't changed very much from 160 years ago. What would be the Jesus? It'd be the same country we were 160 years ago. And maybe it is. And maybe this is the kind of exposure that we need so that we can determine, is this the country that they keep telling us it is? And as a country, heal, come together and amend. And amend a lot. Change some shit. You have to, at its core. And those guys who wrote the Declaration of Independence were definitely intelligent folks and loved this country that they found. But everybody wasn't included in their writings and in their ideas. And maybe because the country is physically made up so different racially than it was back then, maybe some things need to be done over and some provisions need to be made so that we can't be clinging to a party just because we need them for survival, but we can cling to them to add and build on where we are and what we have. That's what I'd rather do, and not just be crying and whining for crumbs.
Either the economic pain from these tariffs is going to cause them to find some courage, or if not, then the voters will make their opinions known in the next midterms. And, my Republican colleagues are going to have to make a decision. Do they want to stand with Donald Trump, or do they want to stand with the people who they were elected to represent?
Yeah, and they have a very narrow majority as it stands right now in the legislative branch. Congressman Seth Magaziner, it was very good to meet you. Thank you for being on the show today, sir. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you guys, the big thing with Trump right now is this. If you oppose his plan, if you're a Republican and you want to stand alone, or if you want to start speaking too loudly behind the scenes, and Trump gets wind of it, you won't be a congressman or a senator for very long. And if you do, you will pull out all the stops. You better be in a district that really loves you more than they love Trump, because there's some folks who've been around for quite a while, and Trump can get them kicked out. He's got that kind of appeal to that party. We weren't in what is it, 15 years ago or a little longer, we weren't looking at Trump as some big dumb loser. Everybody was tuning in to his show, the reality show he had on TV, looking at him as a successful businessman, a thoughtful guy, showing him in the shadows, making the big decisions. And I mean, it was set up to do what it did. It totally made people look at him or see him at work as a business, the decisions and the way he conducted himself. It was a well thought out plan, and I think it was just meant to bolster the show, get the show the money, the ratings, the audience. But it went beyond that. Obviously, this man who just 15 years ago wasn't even in politics at all went from 0 to 100 to being a 2-term, not back to back, obviously, but a 2-term president. There's lifelong politicians who can't pull that off. I understand why everybody's frustrated and mad, but I think that everybody needs to really take this opportunity and recalibrate, especially in that Democratic Party, the Republicans as well, but they are in lockstep with Trump. There's one or two people here and there, but their super majority is so thin. They need the Democrats for some things. They need 60 votes. They need and the Democrats have folks who will break off and work with the Republicans because they are closer to the Republicans than many of us would like to think. Think of some of the areas in this country that they represent. They're very different than living in LA and New York, and some of these people like their way of life and they don't want anything to change. Our comfort level is artificial and false, folks. We have to focus on the economics in this country if we plan to survive as a country. Otherwise, we'll fall down like Great Britain did, and our place in the world is being threatened economically. And hopefully we can begin to talk with our technology with China and Russia and some of the other world powers and see how we can squash the thirst for land. There is no new land. There's no more oceans. Wars we know we are depleting our own resources by going to war. The best thing we could do is everybody needs to sit down at the table, and BRICS and NATO and the leaders of the world need to be rational and don't have the mentality of the Democrats that you can bully your way through any situation, that we would really be able to do a lot of damage if we got into it with Russia, but so many people would die. It would be so much better for us to be able to work with people as opposed to just obliterating them and destroying them and attacking them, and showing one day that the United States can have blood on its own homeland if we continue with that type of mentality. We're not always going to be the biggest, and we're not always going to be the strongest. So we have to be the smartest. And we got to be the well-liked country over here that everybody don't mind doing business with, because we're fair and we're straight and we can help when we can help, but we can't support the rest of the world the way we have been to our own detriment, especially when our presidents are just too quick to put money on that deficit for certain things. That amount of money that is on that deficit, a portion of that could have been taken to be given to the slaves that this country once held. No one ever thinks about that because something else is always more important. And the bottom line is, anything else is always more important. It doesn't take something very important or pressing to top reparations being paid to slaves. It can be something very mundane and normal, and it'll just pop right in front of us. So I get that. So we have to think differently. We have to make those Democrats do different by us and quit acting like everything is good when they're in office, and then 2 months later another guy takes over and the country's 4 months from slavery. No. If it was 4 months from slavery now, it was 4 months from slavery then. We are in no better place now than we were with Biden. And I actually like the fact that Trump is moving fast, because we're going to get to see some results here real soon. And if things don't start falling apart the way the Democrats have told us they will, then they're lying to us. And they're intentionally lying to us to get us out in the street to make it look like the country is against Trump. And when he starts failing and things start getting messed up, you won't have to ask the Americans to go out into the streets. They're going to go out on their own. That's just the way we roll over here. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next Black Popcorn.